Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you, my dear, dear friends, scattered around the globe in Prague world. You have wandered into the Prague corner where, yes, I am on vacation this week, so the content may be sparse, but it'll be no less stellar. I can guarantee you that. The greatness will go unabated. But today we're doing, I saw something online not too long ago about bands that completely changed their sound, did a complete 180, did the weird unexpected left turn in mid-career, and I don't know, the idea just kind of intrigued me a little bit, so I'm going to be looking at the 10 bands that changed their sound completely. You think about the 70s and a lot of bands got an established sound going, and then boom, the 80s happened, and man, everybody was doing something totally different. So, bands like Gentle Giant, their 180s record, totally different. Jethro Tull and Camel and Yes. A lot of those bands totally changed their sound in the 80s, but, it was the 80s, man. It was the time. Even Dixie Dregs and Kansas and Renaissance had a little rough go in the 80s, so I'm kind of taking that into account, maybe not including some of those bands as a result. I'm looking at rock bands that actually are prog rock bands, so Grand Funk Railroad came to mind right away, but they're not prog. Aerosmith, absolutely. Let's see, Split Ends, their first couple records were really prog, and then they changed into something else. Anathema almost made the list. They were like a black metal band, a doom metal band, and then somehow they turned into a prog band. And we're not talking about bands that did like little one-off detours, right? Like Kiss the Elder or Grateful Dead's Terrapin Station or Bad Religion's, what was that called? Into the Unknown, their prog sophomore album. Not talking about that. And we're not talking about bands that are just so all over the map. You can never tell where they're going to be from one album to the next. Yeah, I'm looking at you, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or Motor Psycho. You just never know what you're getting from album to album. And that also got me thinking about bands that never really changed their sound at all. Maybe there's an episode in that, in that there maybe aren't quite as many of those. And I'm thinking about bands like, I don't know, the Ramones, AC/DC, Dream Theater might be guilty a little bit of that, Green Day, even my beloved Neil Morris maybe, but you think about bands that really were able to change a whole bunch that aren't on the list because they're not prog, and I'm just gonna briefly mention like the Bee Gees, went from being a great band to being, disco titans. The Beatles, obviously, chameleons, changed from album to album. How about Fleetwood Mac, right? Started out as a British blues band and turned into a, American California Laurel Canyon thing. Ministry started out as a real sugary, sweet pop band, and boom, next thing you know, they're kind of inventing a whole subgenre called industrial. But these are the ones that kind of fall within the prog realm that we're going to be talking about. The 10 bands that really changed their sound. And at number 10, it's Talk Talk. They started out as a new wave kind of thing, their first couple records. I liked them, I liked that kind of music. I liked the Human League and, Depeche Mode and Heaven 17 and Visage and all that stuff. But who knew they were secretly a prog band? As each album went on, they got better and better until their fifth and final album, Laughingstock. Mark Hollis did a great solo album, and R.I.P. to the great genius that he was. But Talk Talk, yeah, wow. Not only did they change their entire sound, but they helped change the sound of an entire industry. Truly a great band. At number 9, how about Ambrosia? We talked about Split Ends' first couple records as being prog, and then they went, more into the new wave pop thing. Well, Ambrosia earlier did the same thing. Their first 2 albums are fantastic. The first one produced by Alan Parsons, and, these guys played with Alan Parsons on that first record and all that kind of stuff. But man, their first 2 records were fabulous. And then they turned into that radio friendly pop making, hit making machine. So Ambrosia at number 9. talking about bands that completely did a 180, or a 90 or whatever kind of degree turn they did. How about a little band called Journey, which started out as like a spin-off of Santana, I guess. And then, they hire a singer called Steve Perry, and next thing you know, they sound like a whole totally, entirely different band. The first one was Steve Perry. Infinity kind of had a little bit of the old feel to it. You still had a little Ross Valerie singing. It was fantastic, but they changed pretty fast, pretty quickly, and for them it worked out pretty good, I guess. Some of these changes worked out real good artistically. Others worked out real good commercially. You could argue that this one failed at one and was successful at the other. At number 7, my beloved XTC makes the list. Yeah, they started out in the late 70s as a herky-jerky new wave band, I guess, complete with the organ playing and stuff like that. But Barry Andrews quits the band after 2 albums, and instead of hiring a keyboard player, they hired Dave Gregory, a guitar player. So now they've got the twin guitars going, and they are a completely different band. And they actually changed gradually over time. It wasn't like a complete 180 overnight. You just saw that over each subsequent XTC album, the level of maturity and the songwriting prowess of both Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding just went crazy. And XTC, absolutely number 7. At number 6, kind of the first one that I thought of when putting this thing together, it's Opeth. I always thought about them as having 2 different distinct eras, clean vocals and harsh vocals, but watching the Wheel of Prog over on the Prog Report, Mike Portnoy was talking about how they actually have 3 different distinct eras. They have their early, death metal era, then they have their progressive metal era, and then they have their prog rock era. And if Portnoy says it, then it must be true. Opeth definitely changed their sound, and for me, I really appreciate it. This is a band where they made a change, and absolutely for the better for those of us who, prefer prog rock without the harsh vocals. At number 5, it's a band that, they're not capital P prog, but they are prog to me. It's Radiohead, and how they went from Pablo Honey to Kid A in such a short amount of time. It didn't happen overnight for them. This was a change that happened organically. There were no lineup changes to help spur some of these changes along, we might be seeing a little bit later in this list. It was just the band evolving from Pablo Honey to the Bends to OK Computer to Kid A and just onward. Just a completely different band. Doesn't sound like the same band at all. I love Radiohead, and yeah, they make the list at number 5. Okay, at number 4, where are we going? We're going with Rush, man. Yeah, why not? A band, if we're talking about a band with different eras, very distinct eras, Rush certainly was that. You had the kind of the hard rock era, and then the prog era, and then the synthesizer era, and then the grunge era, whatever. But yeah, Rush was a band that had some very distinct turns. You could just definitely see it. Sometimes they telegraphed it. Other times it was a real surprise. But yeah, Rush was a band that was no stranger to change. And again, this was organic. It wasn't like, we've got a new lead singer, we need to change what we're doing. This was just the guys decide they wanted to change because of their artistic influences and their artistic instincts taking them from point A to point B. Rush, a mighty Rush. At number 3, boys and girls, another band with very distinct eras. I'm putting Pink Floyd on this list. Yeah, you have the Psych era, you have the prog era, and you have the AOR era. They're very distinctive, and in some cases, the U-turns and the left-hand turns were done very abruptly from album to album, and you can't even imagine that the band that was Division Bell is the same band that was Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It sounds like a completely different band, but It's not. It's the same band, and that's just crazy to me. So Pink Floyd at number 3 for bands that totally changed their sound. And at number 2, you could argue that, maybe this band changed too much, that there was no, obviously turning point left or right. It was just everywhere all at once. And that's all right. But King Crimson comes in at number 2 for bands that changed their sound, and why not? Yeah, after the first 2 albums, which, kind of sounded similar, they went on to the crazy jazz, weird circus music of Lizard, to the laid back, smooth, hypnotic sounds of Islands, to the absolute craziness of the John Wett and Bill Bruford albums. Just on and on the changes came, and if that wasn't enough, come the 80s, you got Adrian Belew and Tony Levin in the band, a whole new different sound. Yeah, King Crimson at number 2 on the list for band that changed their sound distinctly and obviously over time, and sometimes from album to album it just didn't even sound like the same band, but it was, man. There was always something unifying about King Crimson, and not just that Robert Fripp was on every album, but rather just the whole spirit of what King Crimson is, and absolutely they deserve to be on the list. And who's at number 1? Well, you know who's at number 1. The band that made the biggest change in their sound, but found absolute critical success in doing so. I got Genesis at number 1. And again, it happened gradually. But this was, actually necessitated by personnel changes, whereas some of these other bands is more organically. You don't lose Peter Gabriel and Stephen Hackett and not expect your band to be a little bit different, man. Think about the amount of genius exiting your band. Just reflect on that for a second, and then think about, and then there were 3, and Duke, and Abacab and Shapes, and you realize they're not that bad, but certainly you saw the progression going. It was a slow decline, if you will, into pop stardom, and that's why Genesis is at number 1 on my list of bands that completely changed their sound. And yes, some of those changes were a little more successful than others. Yes, indeed. I'm on holiday break, boys and girls, so I don't know how much I'll actually be doing, and it would be remiss if I didn't tell you about some great records I've been listening to that I may not get around to really doing a review of or anything. So, and they were too late, to make my top list. Arabs and Aspect, man, they just released The Magic of Sin. It was an older album from like 7 years ago, but it was their one album they actually sung in whatever. Are they Norwegian or Swedish, man? It's getting so hard to keep track of. I think they're from Norway. Built for the Future, 2084 Heretic. That's a fantastic record. I'm loving that. The 20 Committee, The Cycle Undone, fantastic. Here's an oldie but a goodie, man. Angra's got a new album out. If you like, the prog metal stuff. I know everybody points to their first couple albums, and why wouldn't they? They're amazing. But there's a brand new Angra album that I actually like a lot called Cycles of Pain rather. Can't read my own handwriting. And Richard Kramarski, man, Odyssey 9999. He's the cat from Millennium. He's the cat from Morrow, the great Polish musician. Just a dynamite record, man. Just came from out of nowhere. He's been so prolific that I kind of lost track. And then, of course, the great Canadian band led by Ken Bard. Monarch Trail just dropped their 4th album on Bandcamp on Sunday. It's called 4 Sides. Ironically, there are 5 songs, but we won't hold bad math against Ken Bard and his crew up there. That is one that I definitely plan on doing an album review for, hopefully this week. If I get caught up with the holiday festivities, it'll be the first thing I do next week. Unless you consider Sunday to be the first day of the week, in which case the Sunday prog stream at Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. We're doing the Mount Rushmore of prog. Join Wayne and myself as we anoint the 4 faces, right, that need to be up, not 4 bands. the four faces that need to be up there on the Mount Rushmore Prague. And yes, Andy Edwards already did this episode, but he got it wrong. We're going to get it right on Sunday. Anyways, join us for that. Until then, or, if I happen to do something in the meantime, I love you guys. Peace in the Middle East. Free Tibet, and God save the king. Save King Chucky the Third. That sucker could use your saving, and so could we all. I'll see you soon. Peace.